What's going on? What's going on, guys? And the clash was good. And here's why. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Burnout series. And today we're going to be talking about the clash that happened on Sunday. And honestly, I thought it was actually really good. Now I go to Twitter, and they all said it sucked. Y'all called that bad? That was a fantastic race. I mean, like, it wasn't perfect, of course. The second half was extremely chaotic. The last chance qualifier drivers didn't have time to refuel, or NASCAR wouldn't allow them to refuel, meaning a lot of them pretty much had to drop out because of lack of fuel, which is honestly kind of stupid. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good race. I don't know what y'all are talking about. A lot of people said it was one of the worst races they've ever seen. Like, it's a short track race. That was fantastic. Just y'all have no taste is what I'm saying. So yeah, there was a lot of good things to talk about with this race. I thought it was pretty much a lot better than last year's race. A lot of the biggest problems I had with it were pretty much fixed this year. For example, one of the biggest problems I had last year was NASCAR was advertising it as a night race and it still finished at sunset. So, well, this year they had it at night and I thought it looked really nice in the lights. So, that was pretty good. Basically, my two biggest problems really had nothing to do with the product on the track, more of how it was being run. As far as I'm aware, the driver introductions were really terrible. I didn't get to see it because I was driving to Domino's to get some pizza or whatever. And then also the other problem was Fox being, you know, the fantastic network that it is and having some of the greatest camera work of all time. Yeah, overall, it was a fantastic race. I don't get the hate behind it aside from maybe because of how chaotic the second half was. But even then, it's a short track. What do you expect? You're gonna see some chaos. So yeah, I thought the race was a perfect balance of some competitive, clean racing in the first half, and then NASCAR's trademark chaos in the second half. So I thought it was a fantastic race. I might be biased because I see a lot of people hated the race. I thought it was actually fantastic and was a little bit better than last year's race. I mean, it's basically taking a great race to a fantastic race. So, yeah, but you're allowed to hate it. I'm not saying if you hate it, you're not a real NASCAR fan, but I genuinely thought it was a pretty good race. It was a great sequel to last year's race. And then, of course, Martin Truex Jr., after going winless in the 2022 season, wins the Clash for the first time in his career. I think that's definitely the boost that he's going to need heading into the season because he's got a lot of proving that he is still capable of winning after last season. I mean, he probably could have made the chase, or I said the chase. But yeah, he didn't make the playoffs last year mainly because he couldn't really make it in through points. It's basically taking a great driver through the playoffs' terrible system of pretty much rewarding drivers that get cheeky wins. Yeah, so he was definitely not a fluke. He was bad fast all weekend, and he was up at the front for majority of the race. So yeah, I think it was a fantastic race, and he definitely proved himself to be back in action once again. And I think he's definitely going to be a consistent winner throughout the season, maybe even a pretty good playoff driver. Not necessarily Final Four worthy, but probably round of 8. So, yeah. But yeah, contrary to popular belief, I thought it was a really good race. There was a lot of action, a lot of chaos, and of course, plenty of beef. Of course, glad to see that Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin are still rivals. It wasn't just a one-season thing. They might actually be the next big rivalry this season. So I'm actually looking forward to that. And of course, we also had early in the week, we had AJ Allmendinger and Chase Briscoe get into a little tangle during practice. So it looks like they kind of got over it in the race, but don't be surprised if we get to see a little bit of chaos with them throughout the season. And then, of course, after the race, Denny Hamlin got into another conflict with William Byron, which led to a little bit, I think, a post-race confrontation. But I don't think Byron's going to be as big of a rival to Hamlin as Chastain would be. But I still feel like we should keep an eye on the two of them because you never know when one more incident's going to lead to yet another rivalry for Denny. There was also some other good drivers in that race as well. Probably one of the big ones that I was really surprised didn't actually win because I thought he was going to win it early. Ryan Preece was up front for a big chunk of the time, which is pretty good for a rookie driver in this race. I mean, I don't know. Priest did a fantastic job in this race. He was cruising through the corners. He wasn't really sliding the tires as much as some of the other drivers. And I think it was a battery issue that caused him to get up on the high lane and then kind of steal his fate at that point. But, I mean, contrary to what I said earlier this week on how Stor Haas is probably not going to win anything this year, I mean, maybe Priest might slip up and actually get a win. I don't know. But my predictions are made to be wrong, so don't get me wrong. Another big driver, Bubba Wallace, I thought was actually a pretty good driver throughout this race. He was up front for majority of the time. He was leading at halftime. I think he probably could have been up there in the top 5, but then, of course, he had to get into an issue with Dylan, of course. Yeah, he was kind of playing with Dylan a little bit too much. Dylan didn't like that, and you know what happens at short tracks. What goes around comes around, I guess. We saw that with Larson and Haley last year. So, but yeah, it doesn't look like Dylan and Wallace is going to be getting into any confrontation this year. So I doubt they're going to be rivals. It was just more or less Bubba, pushing someone, and then Dylan pushed back. So I think it was well deserved for Bubba to kind of get spun out in there. Kind of sucks because it was so late in the race, but overall, Bubba did a fantastic job in this race. Kind of sucks that he got wrecked out late and kind of got shuffled to the back, but I mean, pretty good race. And then lastly, Kyle Busch in his very first race with RCR managed to bring home a 3rd place finish, especially after being spun out by Joey Logano late in the race. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that with this year because Kyle Busch really wants to prove himself and prove that he is not done in NASCAR yet. So expect a lot more of this. See a lot more aggressive racing from him. We might be seeing a return of his brash personality that we saw in the mid-2010s, for better or for worse. With how good I thought the race was, I do still think there could be some things they could change with the Clash next year, so this is just my ideas. First things first, I mentioned it in my How It Would Fix the All-Star Race video. If you haven't watched it, watch it if you want to. I mean, this is outdated, but still. I still think that the Clash could benefit from bumping up from 150 to 200 laps, so we have 100 laps, halftime 100 laps. So I think that would definitely benefit the Clash. Sort of make it a little bit longer. And then as for getting into the race, as much as I like the last chance qualifier in the heat races, I definitely think NASCAR should just nix that idea and create a new way of getting into the Clash. And I think I got a pretty good idea that could benefit from everyone's favorite point system, the playoffs. So my idea was taking the 16 drivers that were in the playoffs last season, along with previous Clash winners and previous champions that didn't make it into the playoffs, and that's your Clash lineup. I think that would actually be a pretty good idea, especially since that sounds like something NASCAR would do. I think that would actually be pretty good, especially since the original format was just taking the pole winners from the previous season. But I think it's basically like a little bit of a mini all-star race for the playoffs sort of thing. So yeah, I think the Clash is going to be back in 2024 for the Coliseum, and judging by the stands and how bare they are, LA, you are missing out on great racing. Go check it out. If you live in LA or around the California area, go to the Clash in 2024. We got to fill up those grandstands next year. If you don't, watch the race again. I think I genuinely like the Clash so much. I thought it was a gamble that NASCAR did, and it was a fantastic result. We have seen great racing at both races. The second one being pretty controversial, but I genuinely liked it. So yeah, hopefully the racing will be even better in 2024. Hopefully Fox doesn't fumble it with the broadcasting. But overall, yeah, contrary to popular belief, I thought the Clash was pretty good. Got great racing, a lot of chaos, a lot of beef, some just fantastic racing, and then Truex winning it all. Alright, and before I move on, in case you have not yet subscribed, I recommend subscribing now, liking the video, and turning off all notifications. Because if you don't, I'll come to your house and steal your silverware drawer. Alright, moving on, I got some other miscellaneous news from the past week. There was a lot of major news heading into this week, so I thought it would be pretty good to quick recap it. First things first, Riley Herbst is going to be racing for Rick Rare Racing in the Daytona 500. Yeah, so in other words, the caution clock is going to be in the 500. Fantastic! And we at least we know how the big one's going to start. Can't wait to see, like, Kyle Busch or Bubba Wallace dominate the majority of the race, only for Riley Herbst to slip up and wreck the whole field. So that's going to be fun. But other than that, it looks like the majority of the field for the Daytona 500 is pretty much all settled. I don't know if there's any more seats that still need to be filled up, but overall, yeah, I think the 500s field is pretty much all set up 2 weeks in advance, and I think that's pretty good. Speaking of fields, Jimmie Johnson's going to be in that race, and he's also announced that he's going to be in the Chicago Street Course race later in July, which I think is a pretty neat thing. Especially since this is going to be such a major event, since it's going to be NASCAR's first ever street course race, I think it would be a fantastic thing, because it's sort of like going to be a sort of mini crown jewel event for the year. So overall, yep, I think it's going to be great to see Jimmie Johnson race in the streets of Chicago. Hopefully I'll be able to see it, but judging by those ticket prices, probably not. So yeah, some other big news going into this week. The Hail Melon move that Ross Chastain did at Martinsville last season has been officially banned, which overall, I kind of blame the playoffs more than the move. I mean, it's basically taking lemons and making lemonade. Ross was in a bad situation, so he just said, screw it, I'm going to just ride the wall. So I think it's a great protest for the playoffs, but overall, this move I think was a good idea to ban it because it was kind of stupid. Speaking of short tracks, in case you didn't realize, the Auto Club Speedway in California is going to be converting into a short track. This coming race at California is going to be the final race in the 2-mile variant of Auto Club Speedway. After this race, it's going to be shutting down for a couple years to wait for the reconfiguration to finish. If you ask me, I hate the reconfiguration idea. Not every race has to be a bumper-to-bumper, door-to-door short track race. I mean, I like California for the fact that it's sort of just sort of an endurance kind of thing. It's basically just a lot of wide racing. We got to see a lot of great racing the past couple years. Specifically, last year was a fantastic race. But it's kind of weird how NASCAR constantly races at tracks when they're so terrible. And the moment they have a good race, they decide, all right, we're going to get rid of it. Or all right, we're going to reconfigure it. So yeah, but aside from that, yep, Auto Club is going to be out of the schedule until the reconfiguration is done after this season. So we might not have a Southern California race after this season, but NASCAR has rumored, or there has been speculation that NASCAR might add the LA Coliseum race as a points race. No! No, no, no. I can't believe that idea. No. No, that race, as much as I like it, it's way too chaotic for a points race. It should just be just a fun race for fun. So, no. But overall, no. Keep it as like a fun exhibition race. Don't make it a points race. If you want to make a stadium race a points race, I'd recommend doing like a baseball field like Fenway Park. I think that would be a pretty cool idea. But I think it definitely kind of messes up the usual format of NASCAR races. Like, you can't do live pit stops. You can't fit 40 cars in the field. So you're going to have to do the heat races, which is kind of unconventional for NASCAR. And I think should really only stay in the Clash of the All-Star race. So, and then lastly, a couple things about some media stuff. Recently, NASCAR's been looking into different methods of broadcasting their races, along with Fox and NBC. They've also rumored that they might actually be partnering with Amazon Prime to stream some races in the future, which I'm kind of a mixed bag in it. In case you don't realize, I tend to be more of a traditionalist. So, I really don't stream that much. I usually just watch TV, DVDs, and YouTube. That's really all I really watch. I'm not a major, I don't have Netflix or Hulu or anything, so I'm just not really into that kind of thing. So, as much as I like the idea to see NASCAR promoted on such a bigger scale, like on Amazon Prime, because we've seen that with some NFL games this year, where they were broadcasted on Amazon Prime. So, as much as I like the idea, I feel like it is a big gamble, because we could see some, like, we could see ratings skyrocket, but we can also see ratings completely plummet because of this decision. So, it's a mixed bag. I don't know. I mean, it would be fun to sort of do that along with having it on a regular network. So, like, for example, if you want to do, like, the Coke 600, you could have it broadcasted on Fox, and then you could have it streaming on Amazon Prime, and then just compare it and see if it's a good bet. So I have no idea what's going to happen. But overall, I do think it's a little bit better just as a novelty than having it as a replacement for TV broadcasting. And then the final thing to talk about is going to be Kevin Harvick announcing that he is going to be joining the Fox booth in 2024, which I think would be definitely a breath of fresh air for Fox. Ever since Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Gordon left the booth, I think it's been overall just kind of, I don't know what to say. It's been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, on one hand, you got Mike Joy, which, I mean, he's Mike Joy. He's a fantastic commentator. But then, as much as I like Clint Boyer's comedic relief, he doesn't really have as much racing knowledge or experience as a more veteran driver like Kevin Harvick would be. So I do think he should stay in the booth. I'm not saying Clint Bowyer should be out of the booth. I think he's sort of he's a pretty nice like replacement. He's like kind of like I like to consider him as like the store brand version of Darrell Waltrip. But yeah, I think he's definitely good in the booth, but I don't think Joy and Bowyer should just be the only two people in the booth. So I think having Joy, Bowyer, and Harvick in the booth would be a fantastic thing. I do definitely like their special guests that they've had in the past. So like they had Tony Stewart at the 500 in the Clash, and then they also had Chad Canals in a couple races as well in the booth. And I think they're definitely showing off their experience, definitely helping with them in the booth. So I think the only thing they really have going for it is their really bad comic book aesthetic that they have for their visuals. And of course, their flawless camera work, guys. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Yep, Harvick in the Fox booth in 2024 I think is going to be a great idea, and I think it's definitely going to help Fox in the long run. So yeah, that's pretty much it for all the NASCAR news. But before I go, I'm introducing a brand new segment that I like to call Noah's Predictions for the following race and who I think is going to win, despite the fact it's going to be really inaccurate. So yeah, I'm basically going to be predicting who I think is going to win this coming week. So throughout the whole race week, I'm going to be predicting everyone in the NASCAR scene. So I was going to predict the ARCA winner, but I have literally no idea who's in the ARCA race anymore. So I don't really follow ARCA much anymore. I just looked up a list of drivers. So I think if I had to pick one, I don't know how good Connor Mosack is, but he's racing for JGR, so that's, I guess, is my prediction. Probably not going to be accurate, so yeah. So I'm also going to be predicting the pole winner for the race as well for the Daytona 500, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And I'm actually going to predict Noah Gragson, I'm predicting, is going to win the pole. And then on the outside is going to be Alex Bowman, who is going to continue his run of being up in the front row. So yeah, that's my prediction for the front row for the 500. And then moving on, we got the Truck Series, who I think is going to win that race. I'm predicting we're going to be seeing an underdog winner. I'm predicting Ryan Vargas is going to win his first career win in the truck race at Daytona. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. You never know what's going to happen at Daytona, so he could easily pull off a win like that. Moving on to the Xfinity Series, I'm actually going to predict that Daniel Hemrick finally wins race number 2 and his first win with Kaulig Racing. So overall, he sort of had a pretty lackluster year in 2022. But I think this year, we're definitely going to be seeing Kaulig Racing skyrocket in success, especially since AJ Allmendinger is moving up to Cup Series. So I think Daniel Hemrick has the capability to be a winner in the Xfinity Series once again for Kaulig Racing. And then lastly, if you didn't watch my 20 predictions for 2023, I did predict Bubba Wallace is going to win the Daytona 500. He's been up front for a lot of the races. He finished second last year. He was up front in 2021. He finished second in 2018. So he's really good at the super speedway. So I think this year he's actually going to pull through and win the 500 for once. And then I also predicted that last week, I don't know if you saw my pinned comment, my prediction for the class winner was going to be Christopher Bell. Didn't turn out good, but I mean, I was one number off, so yeah. So yeah, that's all my notes for this week, so yep. So yeah, we're going to be taking a break next week for the Super Bowl, and then next week we'll be back with a Daytona 500 recap and all the major headlines from that, as well as some other news from the past 2 weeks. We're going to be seeing some big news, I'm pretty sure. So, yep, thank you guys so much for watching, and tune in next time. Yep, so Ramcuts 25. I have finished a lot of it, so it's definitely a full production. I'm hoping to have it out maybe the night before the 500 after the Xfinity race. So, yep, thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time. Oh my gosh, I did it!